This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
When a coach gets fired in the NFL and then somebody gets hired to take their place, there is always an inevitable dynamic, which is winners and losers. Some guys are going to benefit from the new head coach being in the position that they are. Some guys are not going to benefit from that being the case. This happens everywhere with every head coach hire. It's just the case. There are always favorite sons of the last head coach who aren't favorite sons anymore, and there are always people who were consistently in the doghouse who find new life with a new head coach. That's how this goes. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the winners and the losers of the Todd Monken hire. Who do I think will benefit? Who is a more natural fit for what it is that Todd Monken wants to do? We'll start with Shedeur Sanders, who I do think will benefit from a Todd Monken hire. Todd Monken's offense and what Todd Monken does well is a more natural fit for what Shedeur's skill is. Now, there are still some things that Shedeur has to improve on. And I think it's important that we be honest about that, right? I think there is a heavy temptation because Shedeur is the only quarterback on the roster that is still on their rookie deal that people have any hope in, to kind of lie to ourselves about where Shedeur is. But the reality is Shedeur has to demonstrate a great deal of improvement over this offseason in order to get to where he needs to be a quarterback of a team that has any hopes in the playoffs, right? Like, he has to show a considerable amount of improvement in his pocket mechanics. He has to show a considerable amount of improvement in his ability to just run a base offense. But there are some things there that make you feel like he fits with Todd Monken's system a lot easier than he fits with Kevin Stefanski's system. Kevin Stefanski's system was very orchestrated, right? It was very much an offense where you do exactly what the offense demands that you do, and you do it on the timing that each play dictates. And that's not a strength of Shedeur's game. It's never been a strength of Shedeur's game. Shedeur has always been a natural playmaker, and that's for better or worse. Sometimes that natural playmaking leads to playmaking and big plays, and that's awesome. Sometimes that natural desire to play make leads into him taking bad sacks, throwing bad interceptions. So it cuts both ways, but that's how Shedeur naturally plays the game of football. I watched him at Jackson State. This is how he plays football. I watched him at Colorado. This is how he plays football. And his rookie year in Cleveland, this is how he plays football. Todd Monken's offense is more tuned for a natural playmaker than Kevin Stefanski's offense. It's not a perfect fit for Shedeur. Todd Monken does want a scrambler, but Shedeur is not somebody you could do a lot of RPO run stuff with at the quarterback position. Like, he's not a design run kind of athlete at the quarterback position. And I think Todd Monken would prefer somebody with a more live arm who could throw from different arm angles than Shedeur. But I think Shedeur does some of the stuff that you really want to see in Todd Monken's offense, and I think it's a better fit for him than Kevin's was. So I hope that Shedeur improves over the offseason and plays much better this year than he did last year, because I think that this offense can provide a framework where he does look significantly better than he did in Kevin's offense. And we'll see what Todd Monken does to kind of tailor what he usually likes to do to Shedeur, because I think that's also a big difference between Todd and Kevin Stefanski. Kevin was kind of a my way or the highway guy when it comes to his offense, right? Either you're going to run his offense, run his plays, do what he expects you to do, or you're not, and you're not going to play. That's how it was with Kevin. And there were some benefits to that. You got a floor with Jacoby Brissett. You were able to have a floor with a couple of bad quarterbacks along the way. You got more disciplined play out of Baker Mayfield in 2020 that way. And there's some negatives with that, which is, hey, if you don't have somebody who could do it your way, you're going to be looking for a long time. So this environment, bit better for Shedeur than the last one, just because the fit offensively, I don't think is as awkward, right? Shedeur led the league in time to throw in an offense that's about being on time. That's not a good thing. Todd Monken's offense is less about getting rid of the ball quickly and more about getting the ball downfield, attacking, and allowing some flexibility there in style of quarterback play. And also Todd, much more flexible to his roster about what he's willing to do than Kevin is. Not that Kevin was inflexible, but Kevin just wasn't really good at flexing his offense to what guys wanted to do. I think that's a better way of putting it. The next guy who I think is going to benefit from Todd Monken being here is Harold Fannin Jr. I think this one's pretty obvious. Harold Fannin Jr., pretty good last year. And if you look at the ways that he was used, they really just threw him in stick a lot, right? A lot of curls, a lot of speed outs that they were running with Harold Fannin. They really didn't have a ton of like interesting designs for Harold. He just was like taking the grunt work and being excellent with it. There's going to be plenty of that in this offense for Harold Fannin, but I do think that Todd's going to do a much better job of getting the ball to Harold in more creative ways than we saw with Kevin. So that's pretty obvious on Harold Fannin. Quincy Judkins is somebody I'm super excited to see. Now, he has to heal from that injury that he had at the end of the year, and hopefully he heals from that injury quickly. We know how these things go with the Cleveland Browns, though. There usually is a injury that they have complications with, and the injury lingers longer than we expect, and we'll see what happens with that. But Quincy is somebody I'm excited to see. The Browns have invested pretty heavily in the coaching side of things in that run game. Todd Monken has made it clear that the run game is going to be very important. They're still going to keep 3-4 tight ends on this roster. They're going to run some 13. They're going to run some 12. They might even sign a fullback in free agency. All of that, plus the hire of Travis Schweizer as the offensive coordinator, who was the run game coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, I think will be good for Quincy, because if you look at what the Ravens were able to do with the run game with both their running backs, and look, I'll throw Dylan Sampson in here as well, because I think Todd Monken's going to have a lot of fun with a guy like Dylan Sampson, not only as a running back, but also as a utility type player. I thought Dylan Sampson was probably the least utilized good draft pick that they had last year. I thought that was the guy I thought the most when I watched the Browns being like, hey, we need to find more shit for him to do, and they just never found more shit for him to do. I think Todd Monken's going to do a better job of finding stuff for him to do. So I'm excited to see what the future of this run game looks like with those two running backs in a gap scheme. And Quincy is more suited for a gap scheme. So they're going to be heavy gap, heavy counter. And how Quincy ran last year, if they get some better offensive line play and some better just design on these run plays so they're not as predictable, I think it's going to be really, really nice for this team going forward. Then I have the last guy on this list, Cedric Tillman. I think Cedric Tillman might benefit from Todd Monken being here. Todd likes big vertical threats. He likes guys who can go up and get the ball. Sometimes Cedric Tillman has demonstrated himself to be capable of that. I think Cedric Tillman will be more useful in this kind of an offense than he was last year in the Browns offense. He was kind of an awkward fit there. Again, a lot of the Browns offense is about that rhythm and timing with Kevin Stefanski, and that affects wide receivers too, right? Because if you have to be on time as a quarterback, you have to be on time as a wide receiver. This is why the Browns, while under Kevin Stefanski, were infatuated with these sub 6 foot, really good, really quick route runner guys, right? Like they filled the roster with guys like that because you need wide receivers who are going to be on time if you're going to require your quarterbacks to be on time. Again, if you're going to be in time, in phase, and you're going to require that from your passing game, the wide receivers have to do that as well. And Cedric Tillman's just not good at that part of it. Like he's not the greatest guy in getting on time and getting in phase. He needs to improve in that area. But Cedric Tillman can run some very good routes down the field. He can give you a nice little corner, nice little post. I think he gives you a nice little comeback, a deep comeback. I think he can offer about 3 of those routes on the deep tree. And I think he does a decent job of getting open when he runs the deep over. And I think there's something you can do with him in an offense that, again, it's just a little bit more relaxed. It doesn't have to be perfectly on time. It doesn't mean you can just do whatever the fuck you want. But, I think there's going to be room there for Cedric Tillman. But The big caveat here is what the Browns do in the draft. If they go and they get a Denzel Boston, that's rats for Cedric Tillman. Or they get a Cooper, a Omar Cooper or something like that from Indiana, it might be rats for him, right? But I think there's a way to use him that could be effective, and I think it's more likely that Todd Monken gets that than Kevin did. All right, we're going to talk about the guys who I don't think are going to do well with Todd Monken, but first I got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper.
Hey, have you heard of the Sleeper app? It is a place where you can go to play fantasy football. It's also a place you can go to do picks. You can put your knowledge on the line, make some picks, and see who knows ball the most, and maybe even, be rewarded for your knowledge. Go on the Sleeper app. Make sure you sign up using the promo code WORSTTAKE, and you'll get a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Make sure you check out the Sleeper app.
All right, let's talk about the guys who I don't think are going to do well with Todd Monken. First is DeJuan Jones. One, I think there is an expectation reset here with DeJuan. We had hoped that DeJuan would become a future left tackle or future right tackle at the future or something of that, right? I don't think that's happening anymore. I think the hopes with DeJuan have to be downgraded until he demonstrates that he can stay healthy. And that means let's hope that DeJuan could be a really solid backup swing tackle. A guy who you're only going to ask to play maybe 6 games at most a year, and can be huge insurance for you at the tackle position, which is not the worst place to be at. Like, you can make $8 million to $10 million doing that and not be a starter on the offensive line. DeJuan has experience playing on both sides, and I think that's probably where DeJuan can sit right now because he just can't stay healthy. On top of the fact that he can't stay healthy, let's be honest about what the counter-heavy run system is going to require out of a tackle and what DeJuan Jones is and is not good at, right? And the one thing that DeJuan Jones is really not good at is tagging and bagging people in space. He's awful at it, right? When I say tagging and bagging people in space, I mean you can get out on a kick or a pull, find somebody, and get a hat on a head in space on somebody smaller than you, right? If you want to look at somebody who's really good at this in their prime, Joe Bitonio, or I think Wyatt Teller he wasn't as accurate as a Joe Bitonio, but Wyatt Teller, if he got you in space, it was over. He would cook you. He was pancake king at that point of his career. But like Joe Bitonio is probably the most accurate guy that the Browns have had over the last 10 years. Somebody who could pull and hit anybody, any size in space, hit any strike zone, right? That's kind of what you need when you're going to run a lot of counter, because counter requires your tackles on the non-play side to kick and pull. It also requires guards on the non-play side to kick and pull and move around a lot. I mean, that's just what the run game requires these days, right? You're trying to outnumber people. And DeJuan just can't do it. Like, DeJuan can down block fine on a run play, and that's fine when you're not the starting tackle. But when that is your starting tackle and he can't get out in space and do any kind of tag and bag, it limits what you could do, and it makes your run game more predictable. So demoting your expectations of DeJuan Jones down to swing tackle, it sucks, because I think DeJuan did have potential to be a starting tackle before all the injuries. But I think that's just where DeJuan sits. The next guy that I think is probably not going to have a great time, and I feel bad for this guy because he got drafted into a pretty rough situation, Zach Zinter. I feel so bad for Zach Zinter, man. I don't know what his future is going to look like here in Cleveland. He was brought in when Andy Dickerson was the offensive line coach, and he fit the vision that Andy Dickerson wanted at offensive line, which is he was trying to get bigger, more powerful guys who can down block and not really worried about them moving in space. And then the next year, the Browns go back to a system that's not really about what they drafted him for, and he kind of just got lost last year on the depth chart. And I think the same thing's going to happen this year. The Browns are going to require their guards to do a lot of moving, a lot of getting out of space, and that's just never been what Zach Zinter was good at before his knee injury, and it's not what he's great at after the knee injury. I think in a different system, he could be fine as an offensive lineman. I just think he keeps getting put in these bad system fits for him. And that's the issue. Now, again, Todd might be able to do some things to make him more comfortable, but seeing how much Todd was making big-ass Daniel Falele move and try to hit things in space in Baltimore, I don't think he's going to adjust that, right? Like, I think that's going to be how it's going to have to be. And if that's the case, I don't think Zach's a great fit for that system. Jerry Jeudy, I don't think he's going to have a great time with Todd Monken. I'm going to be honest here. Jerry Jeudy was really, really the only wide receiver that benefited from Kevin, outside of like Amari Cooper, right? And what I mean by that is he fit what those offenses wanted really well. But what this offense wants is going to put Jerry Jeudy in a position to catch through contact more often. That's not Jerry Jeudy's strength. It's going to put Jerry Jeudy in a situation where he has to improvise more often. That's not Jerry Jeudy's strength, right? You could get the ball in Jerry Jeudy's hands, maybe underneath, and I think there's stuff you could do with him there, but it's real, like a lot of what he does best, I don't think you're going to really use a ton. I think that Jerry Jeudy probably becomes expendable at this year's trade deadline, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns moved off of him by then, because he's just not really what they need at wide receiver anymore. Too talented for them to just get rid of him right now because they don't have any other real wide receivers on the roster. So until you have somebody emerge, you can't get rid of him, which is why I think he'll get moved at the trade deadline and not in the offseason. But yeah, the fit's curious to me. The next guy is David Njoku. I think David Njoku is not coming back. It's not going to get re-signed. The first bad sign was that the Browns didn't want to work out this extension during the season, but that might have just been due to like Kevin Stefanski's uncertainty with the organization and them not wanting to extend anybody on the offense because they know that that's going to be an area where they're expecting a lot of turnover. Also, it's not a good sign for David Njoku that Andrew Berry has said multiple times, we expect a ton of turnover on offense. That includes David Njoku more than likely. The third thing that's kind of a nail in the coffin for David is that he's going to be more expensive than guys who have familiarity with what Todd Monken wants to do, right? Charlie Kolar is not really going to take his spot. He'll probably take the third tight end spot, but Isaiah Likely can take the role that David Njoku was going to fill with this team, and he can probably fill it for cheaper and maybe even more effectively than David at this point in his career. It's just not a fit. The emergence of Harold Fannin has kind of put him on an island. I don't see him coming back. I think it's pretty much a wrap there with David Njoku in Cleveland. But those are my winners and losers from the Todd Monken hire on the roster. Let me know who you think will benefit and who you think won't benefit. You could add somebody like Dylan Gabriel on the list too. I didn't choose to add him here because I just don't think that I don't think that Todd's going to be great for Dylan. Dylan does not have a skill set that makes sense for Todd's offense. But like, I didn't think that Dylan was really going to benefit from anything that the Browns did at head coach because I don't think he's really on their radar at this point after the showing that he had his rookie year. I think at least with Shador, like I wasn't blown away by him in his rookie year by any means, but there were at least a couple of plays where you're like, okay, there's something there that could be ironed out and smoothed out. With Dylan, it's just like he really fits one thing, and we don't do that one thing anymore. I don't see a path for him to be successful outside of that. Maybe I'm wrong, and Dylan lights it up during training camp, but we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that's my winners and losers for Todd Monken taking the job. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.